Okay, so you spent all this time, energy, and effort to create this awesome ad template that's worked with one client. Then you go and try it on the next client and it completely takes. In today's video, I'm going to show you why that is and why the system you're using at the moment sucks and how to fix it. So for those who don't know who I am, my name is Uncle Jimmy, and I'm here to help you improve your service delivery because no one else is talking about it. So I've been running my agency, My Online Guide, for 8 years now, and I'm going to impart all the knowledge I have onto you guys. So to make sure to subscribe to the channel and also join our free school group because I answer a lot of questions that the crew has there as well, and that's linked in the description. Okay, so let's get some context here. Why are your ads failing when you've got this fancy template that you either gotten from the internet or you've developed optimizing it over a period of time? Why is it failing? It's quite simple, really. You've created one frog for one environment, and I'm going to try and explain that as simply as I can. Okay, so something I like to teach my students and in my group coaching calls is about frogs. I like to use analogies that you'll remember, right? People talk about all different concepts in social media marketing, but no one tries to simplify it. And I like to use frogs as the analogy for this. So in a cliff note of what we're going to talk about today is that you are creating ads that work in one environment, in one bucket. And what you need to do is develop ads that work in different environments and different scenarios. So I like to use this frog analogy as that example. So this is generally what I'm seeing a lot of is there's a lot of people out there that think they just have to develop one ad and that one ad is going to work across all of their clients. And it just simply doesn't work like that in real life. And the reason for that is quite simple, really. So let's talk about it like this. Let's say that you have your one ad. Ad one, this is the one you've developed and it works for X client. So client one, and it works for them, but you find that you have two other clients and that ad just doesn't perform as well for them. And the reason for that is that even though these clients look the same on the surface, they have subtle differences which affect the ad's performance with those other clients. Okay, so let's say you're working with gyms, for instance, right? Now, on the surface, a gym's a gym. They all do the same thing. They take clients and they try and get them fit. But actually, under the surface, there's actually a lot of differences between those gyms, right? Like you think about it. You might have one gym that happens to be in an area that's got higher value people, like it might be in an affluent area, and maybe their client base is a little bit older. Or you may be working with a CrossFit gym whose general audience is 20 years younger than that other gym, right? So each one of these businesses has subtle differences that affect whether your ad works, because generally when you've created this one ad, you've created it for this first client and this first client only. And if their target audience is 65 years old, you've developed this ad for 65-year-old people. So you can see why it wouldn't work for someone that's 30, because the things you have to say and the things you have to do to convince a 65-year-old to go to the gym are completely different to the things you have to convince a 30-year-old to do at the gym. So this is where the frog analogy comes in. So what we're going to actually do is we're going to think of these as different buckets, right? So we're going to have, overall, I want your campaign to look like this, right? So you're going to have ad 2, ad 3, right? And ad 2 is going to work for this, and ad 3 is going to work for this client, right? And you're probably thinking, okay, that seems like a lot of work, but it actually isn't. This is where the frog analogy comes in. So I want to explain this concept when it comes to frogs. So let's say, for instance, ad 1 is just a generic house frog, right? Like you've developed this ad and it works really well in a specific environment. Now that environment may be more general than most, but like this is, say this is your random garden frog that you'd find in your backyard, right? Now, if you were to take that frog and place it in the Amazon jungle, it's going to die, right? Even though it's a frog and it should survive, it's going to die. It hasn't adapted and evolved to the environment it's dropped in. So let's think of these clients as different environments. So let's say this is the general garden environment. Let's say this one's the Amazon. Let's say this one is the desert, right? So if you've got a frog, let's say you've got the general frog and it's just a garden frog, you drop it in the Amazon, we know it's going to die. You take that same frog and you drop it in the desert, it's going to die. We understand that, but they're all frogs. So what we're going to have to do is evolve ad 1 into ad 2 and ad 3. So we take ad 1 and use that as our base. We throw it in the environment and then we optimize the ad the same way we optimized it before. So we take ad 1. So we take the first ad and we optimize it to become the ad 2. So that would be like taking the ad and over a period of several years, the frog starts to evolve poison and whatever it needs to survive in the Amazon jungle. Same with ad 3. You take your core original ad, the garden frog, and you throw it in the different environment, let it die a whole bunch of times and let it evolve to burrow and to get moisture, whatever frogs in the desert do to survive. That's how we develop these different hybrid ads, these hybrid frogs from the original frog. So the beauty about this system and developing it this way is, yes, it's going to take you more work to get your clients' results, but what you're going to end up doing is having 5 or 6 ads that work in different environments. Now, for you as a gym, that environment might be different age groups. If you're working with roofers, it might be different areas. So you might have one that works with single-story homes. You might have one that works with double-story homes. If you find that your client is working predominantly in an area that's 2-story homes, your 2-story ad is going to be the frog you drop into that environment. Every client you have after that is going to evolve that specific frog. They're going to become their own subspecies of those original garden frog ads. So the garden frog ads is always going to work with the specific client base, which in our gym scenario was over 65s. So in this case, it's going to work with over 65s, right? But as we go on, you're going to have this ad here, this Gym 2 ad, work with say 30 plus. And then this third ad is going to work with say CrossFitters, right? So every time you get a client that is a CrossFitter, you start with the third ad. And then what you do is every time you use ad 3 with a client, you evolve that ad. So you will use ad 3, then you end up with like ad 3.1, ad 3.2, as you get more data from the clients that have that are CrossFitting. And same with ad 2, right? Once ad 2 is in being used with a specific demographic that you know it works and it's developed into the jungle frog, then you're going to be developing that ad and it's going to end up as its own like species of ad, if that makes sense. So it's going to be like ad 2.2. And eventually you'll end up with these trees of ads. So what it will look like if you do this properly is you'll end up with 5 or 6 individual ads that work in different environments. So you'll have maybe 10 clients and you'll have 5 ads that work between those 10 clients because you've taken the clients and you profiled them and worked out, okay, that client needs to work with this ad, that client needs to work with this ad, so on and so forth, right? And then what you'll end up finding is that you end up just evolving down those paths and they end up as completely different ads that work very specifically for those specific clients. And then what happens is your onboarding is really there to work out which frog you start with and which environment you start with and which frog you're going to throw into that environment. So for instance, if we go down the gym side of it, you're going to take the gym and you're going to talk to them and you're going to find out, okay, what is their client base? Is it over 65-year-olds? Is it 30-year-olds? If it's over 65, we're going to use ad 1. If it's over, if it's 30-year-olds, we're going to use ad 2 because we know that works the best for that environment. It's got the best chance of surviving and thriving. And then let's say you use ad 2 and you run it with this client and you make some tweaks to make it work better. You just feed all that data back into ad 2 and that just makes that more suited to that environment, more specialized to that environment. Now, it sounds like a lot of work, but really you're going to end up only having 5 or 6 ads that work with pretty much all of your clients. And you will have outliers. You'll have some subspecies where it's like some random specialized client that you've got that works with like it's a gym that works with geriatrics, like 80-year-olds. And it's okay, I've never developed an ad for that. We're just going to find the ad that's closest to it and evolve that for it and just fork off an evolution. So this would be, so if this was ad 3, this might be ad 3.5, something like that, and fork it off for when you have those scenarios. They're so few and far between that it's not worth warranting any time and energy to thinking about it. You just have to make the ads when you come to it. Now, the beauty about developing ads this way is it becomes a little bit of a menu system for when you start to scale your agency as well. So for instance, if you've done your onboarding and you know that it's a plus 30 client or whatever you decide, the thing is when you decide your environments for your frogs, they can be anything. It just has to be something you can delineate and you can have really point out and go, that client is that. So like I said, roofers, it might be single story, 2-story, commercial, industrial, say for instance. With the gym, it might be 30 plus, geriatrics, 65 plus, or CrossFit, whatever, right? You just need to be able to delineate those different environments because they've got to be different enough to warrant you creating an ad for them. What you'll do is you'll go, okay, all the onboarding, we worked out that this client's archetype, ideal client is a plus 30-year-old. Then you can go to your VAs and go, take the ad 2 off the shelf and build it out for this client. Then using the SOPs that you develop for that, because you can get quite specialized with your SOPs at that point. And then any of the data that you get from that client can go back into improving the ad 2. And then you can roll that out to the rest of the clients. All right, guys. So that was a little bit of a quick and dirty intro into the frog analogy that I use to help articulate why it's important to do this. But the cliff notes are that if you have a single ad that you're thinking is going to work with every single client, you're just not going to get success because every single client is subtly different. And you need to identify those differences and create an ad that works for that archetype of client. And if you can do that, you end up with 5 or 6 ads, which becomes your ad library, which you then can use and further develop and further optimize. And the frog analogy again is like you got your generic house frog. If you just take that ad and you just throw it in any environment that you come across, a lot of times it's going to die. It's not going to work. You need to evolve that ad for that specific environment. And the way you do that is by taking the generic frog, your generic ad that works for one client, and then just optimizing it the same way you did to make that ad work. But you make sure all that data ends up back in a new ad, which might be ad 2, which works with 30 plus. Simple, right, guys? So that's what I teach my coaching students and group coaching. And it works really well because it's really a mindset thing more than anything else. And it doesn't add that much work to your plate. So guys, if you've got one ad and it's not working with the second client, start to evolve it, start to work through it. Remember that SMMA is a long-term game. And yes, it's not going to get you a result straight away, but long-term, over the lifetime of your agency, doing it this way is going to get you such a higher ROI than trying to just brute force one ad to work with everyone. So guys, I'm Jimmy. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and also make sure to join our school group. It's free and I do a lot of the conversations that I have with students in there. So make sure to join that and I'll catch you in the next video.